What work moment made your attitude go from proud employee to I'm just here for the paycheck? It was a 3-day weekend, Sat Sun Mon, and I was already scheduled to work Sun and Mon. On Saturday, I got a call from work. They needed my telephonic help with something. That didn't require me to go back in. I handled it from home and it took about 30 minutes. I added 30 minutes to my time card for the work on Saturday. You know, my only day off. And on Tuesday, after his 3-day weekend, my boss tells me the Saturday OT, 30 minutes, was disapproved because I didn't actually come in. So I just stopped answering my company paid cell phone outside of work hours. They already don't pay me for OT or on call, so I feel you. Friday afternoon came around and a firewall at a site went down. Still down at end of day. Not on call. Not my problem. When the owners and GM looked at my prostate cancer as a major inconvenience for them, when they bitched about my being out for cancer surgery, and I'd been out less than 2 weeks, when I was back after 2 weeks wearing a freaking diaper because I was afraid of losing my job because of cancer, then they expected me to be concerned whether they made a profit. Yeah, that's likely. I started working for Radio Shack as a Christmas employee in 1989. When the holiday months were over, they offered me a full-time job and I took it. For the first 4-5 months it was great and I enjoyed coming to work. Then the manager got fired and a new manager took over. At first he was okay and we got along decently, especially since they had announced that they were going to move the store to a newly built strip mall where we should see a nice uptick in business. Great. The week of the move I put in a lot of overtime helping get the new store set up, putting up shelves, arranging things etc. The weekend we moved, the district manager screwed us. He said he was going to rent a bigger U-Haul truck and get 15-20 people to help us. He did nothing and got nobody, so we were on our own. I worked 36 hours straight, went home for 6 hours to sleep, then came back and worked another 12 getting everything moved and set up. The district manager didn't thank me for putting in all those hours and helping. He bitched that it took so long to do and said we were weak. When I went to turn in my time card, my manager didn't want to pay me for all the overtime. He and the district manager tried to convince me to volunteer those hours. When I demanded to be paid, they told me they might have to let me go because my hours are throwing the store payroll out of whack. I told them if they wanted to fire me for asking to be paid for the hours I worked, it was fine with me so long as they paid me. After a couple of days of arguing, they agreed to pay me. From that moment on I didn't give a crap. I started to realize that they didn't care about me and I was just here to collect a check. I always tell this to young people, always get what you are owed. Never let an employer bully you out of taking rightfully earned money. Previous job, the owner of the company let go of a secretary due to hard times. It's sad but understandable. He then fires her husband who worked the night shift cleaning crew because I didn't want any retaliation. He took away both sources of income from this family at the height of the recession for no reason other than paranoia. The owner would say we are family here. Sure. I freaking hate that we're family bulls. We're only family until it becomes even slightly inconvenient. Used to work at a builder's merchant, running the outdoor yard of the place entirely by myself. Should be at least 2 people. 3 people is ideal. Put up with a lot of crap such as not one single staff bothering to help when it got busy. It got busy a lot. And being a doormat by working 9 hours straight with no lunch breaks 4 weeks on end because lack of staff. Pretty exhausting considering it's manual labor and all outdoors. The bit that was too far was when a health and safety officer showed up one day, decided to write me up for gross negligence of rules even though I was doing exactly what the company told me to do, which then led to almost losing my job and being on a final warning for 6 months. Bear in mind I'd never had a single warning before this, so that was bollocks. Crap like that makes you realize that you're nothing but a freaking number to these companies, and actually going way above what you should be doing for a crap job is a complete waste of time. If you requested lunch breaks and were denied, that's when you call an attorney. You allowed that to happen, an attorney would have told you exactly what to do for a payday and to start looking for a new job ASAP. When I was told to peel the manufactured sticker off of the back of the new instruments we were installing for a customer. Peel them off and leave them laying around in the open accidentally. For 7 years I had a boss who valued the work people did. and didn't care how you arrived at the end product. Motivated and innovative employees were recognized and generally received additional responsibility and challenges. Then came the new boss, who was the textbook example of micromanager, and ran the department like it was a 50s assembly line. Watched the amount of time people took breaks, watched the minute people arrived, and the minute they left. The achievements were no longer recognized and employees were just cogs in a wheel. If there is no incentive to do anything more than the minimum amount of effort, the minimum amount of effort will be done. Was told they'd be hiring someone full-time with higher pay to do my exact same job, and I would no longer be qualified. Knew me apparently wasn't as good as I was. Boss said she forgot how much was involved with the job. Well yeah, that's easy to do when you give someone else all the work. Watched as the district manager for a game stop convinced a clearly poor family that their warranty didn't cover their 3DS. I'm pretty sure it did, so I caked the hero line or whatever to report him. I got fired 2 months later by him, the day before my benefits kicked in. See you in heck, mother sucker. A change of boss. We went from someone positive and inspiring to work for to adult without vision or concern for employee morale or motivation. I think about this every day. I'd hate to lose my boss because he is one of the best bosses I've ever had. He's stuck up for me more than once, got me a pay raise, more often than not tells me he appreciates the work I do, and doesn't treat me like trash. Today. Recently the company I work for took away commission and replaced it with a bonus of a free pair of jeans from the store. The item gets taxed as well, which is fine. Today we found out we get an item up to $200. The company is American, and my store is in Canada. Our dollar is crap, so the prices of the clothes in my store are a lot higher now than before. In the States, that $200 gets you pretty much everything save 2 or 3 styles of jeans and outerwear. In my store, not a single pair of jeans fall into that category, so I contacts the DM and asked if we could go off the American price, which would mean we could actually get our free pair of jeans. Nope, it's $200 company-wide for fairness. So I asked if I didn't take my pair of jeans, if I would still get taxed. Regardless of if I take the jeans or not, I get taxed on the $200. So they took away my commission, replaced it with a bonus structure I can't use and get taxed on it anyways. This sounds illegal. Not sure how they can tax you for a benefit you don't receive. I was a relatively new manager of a college bookstore. When my assistant manager left to take a job in her field, there were 2 months to go until the start of textbook rush. My regional asked what he could do to help me make it through, seeing how I was going to be short-handed. Get me someone experienced from another store, just for a week when things get busy. The next day he called me back and said, I can't get you anybody. You're not going to be allowed to hire a replacement. You'll have to terminate your 3 temps the day rush ends, and you can't convert any of them to part-time. But that means I'll literally be the only person on staff. It's a small store. Deal with it. I would quit the day before the rush started. When the CEO sneered at me, should I call your mother and tell her you can't do your job? No one had bothered to train me and I wasn't getting paid. I took my things and left. Never went back. How about we call your mother, cause I'm about to have a lot of free time on my hands. When I got told that my colleague and I already get paid too much when we asked for a little extra. We're currently paid minimum wage. Be thankful we hired people who can legally work in this country. I was the general manager of a small chain of retail stores. My boss closed all but one store and let every employee go except for me. Normally we had 4 employees, not including a manager, working at each store. They weren't doing well and we had to cut down on costs, so I understood, buckled down, and ran an entire store by myself. Not only did he never come up to the only store he owned to check on things, but I wasn't allowed to shut down and leave for lunch breaks, and was too busy to eat there. Then he and his wife started going on these 2-week vacations almost every month. She doesn't work. He came back once and told me he had to cut my pay and needed me to take over purchase orders and do inventory on the entire store every Wednesday. That was it for me. I started sending people to a similar store down the road and found a new job. There is now a for sale sign on his building. I hope he reads this. TL. DR. My boss put more and more responsibility on my shoulders while cutting my pay and taking elaborate vacations because we were short on funds. I never understand why people think it's okay to ask people to do more for less. Found out that the product reps were giving a ton of free product to the store for the managers to distribute to the sales team. The reps would even give the managers the option of getting a few display-only models for customers to check out or giving products directly to the sales team for them to describe to the customers. The managers would blatantly lie to the reps and say that giving them to the sales team would help their sales the most, and then the managers would just take all of it. Then these same managers would blame the sales team 100% for poor numbers at our no commission position. If they're only looking out for themselves, then I'm doing that exact same thing. Sounds about right. I worked for Geek Squad and Microsoft, and other reps would drop off merch, software keys, t-shirts, the odd box of food. These things never made it to the punes. Maybe if you were lucky there would be an odd XXXL t-shirt or broken pen, but the managers got all the Win 7 Ultimate packs, the chocolate bars from McAfee, or the cool HP shirts. When they did layoffs during the recession, I understand, but laid off the people who cared about their job and worked their butts off and kept the people for whom it was like pulling teeth to get them to do anything. Well, that, and also when I was interviewing for a promotion and the interview was 15 minutes of them telling me how much they loved my work and how perfect I would be for that position, and then ended with "and we're giving it to the VP's daughter." That interview sounds like they also were there just for the paycheck. I doubt hiring the VP's daughter was their idea. Both of my mentors, two ladies who saw potential in me that I didn't and helped me turn my life around, were fired, packaged out, within a week of each other. Fired by people who had only started a few months before and then themselves quit a few months later. The company cut out a whole department and transferred their duties to my department. Now we must do two people's jobs for a 52-cent HR raise, and the strict no overtime policy remains. Fast forward 3 months and the company flies all the managers, 3,000 plus, from across the US to Florida for a meeting where they rent out an amusement park and have a concert by a well-known artist. Needless to say, I'm now the saltiest of salty employees. Worked sales in a radio station. We promoted the heck out of this concert coming up, and usually if the numbers reached the goal we had, I would get a bonus for it. Usually, a large bonus. We double the attendance, easily beating the goal we had, and I received a $10 gift card to Applebee's. Immediately after I got that gift card, I applied for a new job and ended up leaving. When they asked why I was leaving, I decided to be honest and said, when you compensate someone with a $10 gift card to Applebee's for reaching a milestone for a concert, you won't keep many people. I can't believe a $10 gift card to Applebee's is a thing. Jesus. Good on you. The moment they hired an outside guy and paid him as much as I get to do all the social media work I'd been doing. This is right after a conversation about how great my work has been, and we had a discussion about an increase in my hourly rate due to the extra work. Needless to say, I stepped away from the social media and they haven't figured out why it's crap now. Getting my temp contract extended another 6 months instead of being brought on permanent, right before they had a brand new training class of permanent direct hires. Their justification for extending? They couldn't afford it. Frick you. Current job. This isn't a joke. I overheard one of my supervisors complaining about layoff season because she wouldn't be able to humiliate and make us cry as often. Boss won't do anything about her. This happened a few weeks ago. My boss told me to go to one of the project leaders and tell him to stop work at a particular project. So I do that. The project leader goes like, "This is ridiculous. This is a $400K job." To which I was like, "My boss told me to tell you, don't shoot the messenger." So the project leader talks to the operation manager. The operations manager comes up to me while my boss is in the room, goes like, "You dark soul yerk. Did you tell the project leader to stop work at a particular project?" I say, "Yes I did." "Why?" "Cause my boss told me to." The operation manager turns to my boss, goes like, There were 3 other people in the room when my boss originally told me to do this. and those same 3 people were also in the room in that moment. No one spoke up. I was promoted to manager and was given no training. Oh, we had a company-wide useless leadership training but no specific job description or anything. I asked my boss several times but he was very flaky and vague. So I did what I thought was needed and did a ton of behind the scenes work to ensure that our team was running smoothly, worked with our remote team, implemented and improved our internal processes, and dealt with any personal issues affecting team members, gave them guidance on their careers when they asked, met with team members weekly to assess how they were doing. I met with my boss for my annual review about a year later and he said I was doing a fantastic job and to keep it up. My boss then avoided me for 4 months. Other direct reports said he was doing the same to them. At our first one-on-one after my review, 4 wordless months later, he said, "You're not really acting like a manager. I'm going to make you an individual contributor." When I pressed him for specifics he refused to give any. He was careful not to tell me that I was doing a bad job, but just kept saying I wasn't doing what he expected of me. Which, remember, he refused to tell me what he expected of me as well. This was the meeting where I said frick it. When I watched every position above me in my department stay open for a year and my boss wouldn't even interview one of us for any of them. Not one. All the while complaining that he can't find candidates despite 3 of us applying. It got to a point where one of us did get promoted. He got promoted by another supervisor that doesn't even work in our department. In fact, he filled every position himself and more or less told our boss to sign the offers. Worked a 12-hour shift, then stayed on an extra hour because it was insanely busy. Received no thanks, and was told by management to man up and stay another hour. Needless to say, I didn't. When my favorite resident died, I used to pick up days just so he'd get a shower often enough he wouldn't let a woman give him a shower and I was the only male to work that wing consistently. And whenever I had free time in the evening, I'd sit in his room and just talk to him. He was an amazing man. He joined the USMC during Vietnam because he knew he was going to be drafted anyways. So why not sign up to fight with the best? After a few years of service, he became an electrical engineer and wound up working all over the country. He was in NYC when the towers fell. He worked in nuclear plants and was an all-around awesome guy. He had COPD and retired at age 74 because he couldn't take his oxygen tank with him onto job sites. Let that sink in. He was probably the only resident I had that just treated me like an ordinary person, rather than just some replaceable worker. Gave everybody he met a nickname. Always had an opinion on the people he met, but was the nicest man you'd ever meet. He passed a few hours before I came into work one night. I was on another hall, but was coming over there at 10, and one of the aides that had been working since 2 told me he died. It devastated me. I actually cried, which is something I don't usually do, and was visibly shaken up. I couldn't talk for hours or else I'd break down and cry. I finished the night, but I just felt hollow the whole time. I still think about him from time to time. 5 months later. Miss you, Zach. I'm glad you two were able to meet and make each other's lives better in many ways. It's hard to find a connection like that and it's great that you treasured it. No matter what happens in your life, you impacted someone's and I'm sure many others' lives positively. Thank you. Got hired as a technical writer, a job I'd been aiming to get for several years. As it happened, the team I joined was a little bit of a rogue element in the company, had a lot of their own branding, used different chat clients, had a very different outlook on what our company should be doing. Most technical writers usually do online help stuff, but I and my 2 close colleagues did tons of non-traditional tech writer stuff. Helped with advertising UI copy, wrote and disseminated newsletters for releases and patches. I built and maintained a very popular internal document repository, and lots of other cool stuff that I love doing. Someone I met at the company once told me that enjoying the work that others hate is the best job security, and she was right. I love figuring out how to organize documents, designing templates for Word and InDesign, making cool GIFs to show off how new product features work, and writing directly to customers. About a year and a half goes by, and the manager of the company's tech writing team pulls a bunch of strings and absorbs us into his much larger team. I'm officially cut off from my beloved smaller team, directed to never waste time on internal things like the document repository, told that newsletters are marketing's job, and that the online help we'd built over the last year had to be redone in his team's methodology. He wasn't wrong, and a lot of what I did wasn't usually what tech writers do, but goddang if it didn't kill the love I had for my job. He flat out told me during our first conversation that his goal was to make my job as boring as possible and that I would always know what each week would bring. He was right about that too. Last night to be exact, my boss flipped out on me because he overstaffed, can't read situations for crap, and he yelled at me as I was bagging an order, then sent me home. I don't have the patience to care anymore. I do what I'm paid to, then I leave. There's no appreciation for anyone in that joint. After 7 years of service, going above and beyond my role and paycheck, volunteering countless hours without claiming for them, I asked for 2 days off for my grandpa's funeral as he lived 4 hours away and they only gave me 1 day. I had to leave my grandpa's funeral during the service to get back home in time to go to work the next day, and the past time I ever saw my grandma was at my grandpa's funeral. She died a few months later and the last time I saw her was at my grandpa's funeral. After that I couldn't wait to get out of there. Work as an engineer, and was told early on to never be the software guy because it would derail my career. Got a new software, Revit 3D building drafting modeling, and after 2-3 years of resisting, finally decided to go full bore at the software cause I was tired of hearing all the complaints. This became on top of my other duties. Anyways, struggled for couple years at it, working late hours. Last one to leave office 75% of days. Finally got real good at it, ran training classes, taught 6-8 people how to be good at it, started fixing and writing processes to teach and standardize its use in the company. Out of the blue, one day the company hired a new younger guy and says I can start pawning things off on him. He starts asking me a lot of questions because he oversold himself and was way out of his league with the software. Guy seems to be a true manager type, meaning he knows how to network, delegate, and really get nothing done. It seemed pretty obvious to me that he was full of crap, but not to our management. Soon, the company decided to start a new Revit manager position, and they gave the position to him. Told me I could finally focus on being an engineer. I was happy on one hand, but watching him change the whole process I set up was pretty disturbing. He lasted a year, and then left. Company tried to pawn it back on me, but I've refused to do it. We are still getting a lot of benefits of the employees I trained, but everything he did in a year has been pretty useless. To be fair, it's 3 years later, and I'm in much better position, but it still pisses me off that the company wasted all that money on an extra employee that got nothing done. One day on my way to work I got into a car accident. Car totaled. Grandpa we wasn't sure was going to make it, me possible concussion. I called into my job to explain why I can't come in. Their response was unless bones are broken no excuses, get to work. From that day forward my job was just a check to me. I used to come in early and stay late with no thank you out and them trying to short my paycheck. From then on no more. Boss at department store wanted me to pressure people into buying crap they didn't need. Old fella came through, needed help with his disconnecting internet. I know my networks. Identified from his information that the fault was the Ethernet cable between his gateway and wireless AP. Sold him a cheap cable. Boss tells me I should have tried to sell him a new router too. Guy was a freaking pensioner. You slimy C. I quit a few days later. Frick that crap. I refuse to lie to sell crap. My store had been struggling to meet its targets for a while, so we buckled down and did our best and we exceeded our weekly target. No other store in our district managed this. On our weekly conference call, my district manager asked us why we didn't do any better and implied we were lazy. I phoned her after the conference call and essentially told her to never accuse me or my staff of being lazy ever again, or we would make sure that this store never meets its targets ever again. From that point on, I stopped caring about my job. I stopped trying to meet targets, to implement mandatory changes on time, respond to emails in an acceptable time frame, discipline my employees. I took longer lunch breaks than was acceptable and encouraged my staff to do the same. At some point my district manager asked me why we didn't do a certain thing that was apparently critically important, and I replied, "It's clear that nothing we do will ever be good enough for you, so we stopped trying to please you. We're focused on pleasing our customers and not hating every day that we come into work." A few months later I resigned, taking a position with another company that was, strangely, made up of a lot of employees from the company I had just left. We were all able to commiserate. The store I left had a complete staff turnover shortly after. Everyone was let go and replaced. Then they did a complete turnover a year after that, and just the other day, I was in the shopping mall and I saw the store was closed permanently. When my first job at a grocery store made me literally pick up human feces because someone crap on the floor of the bathroom. Went from psych to have a job to I hate everything about this real quick. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.